Okay, man, come on. I've been listening to this hostile music for like a minute. Can I shoot through the... I must be able to... Hey, I can! Sweet. Well, okay, I can't shoot. I have to shoot a little off kilter, but... Yeah, this music is not gonna stop until he stops being interested in me. How many arrows can this guy take? Oh! Oh, okay. That looks all good now. Okay, you're good. You're not interested in me. Yeah, oh no. Oh, something's really wrong with you, huh? Oh no. Whoa, oh god, oh god. Hello everyone, it's time for an adventure into the world of Risen. We're going back to 2009 this time, and Piranha Bytes, who are the creators of the Gothic series and the recent game Elex. But how did I really get into this game? Well, sometimes you just don't know what to play, so sometimes something else has to make that decision for you. In my case, I use Backloggery in order to track all the games I have and use its fortune cookie functionality to randomly select a game from my library, which just turned out to be Risen today. If you like, you can take a look at my Backloggery to see what games I have and what games I've been recently getting at backloggery.com/Orylen. So, what is Risen? Well, Risen is an RPG where you play a dude who washed up on an island and through his adventures, learns the plight of the residents, chooses sides, and becomes part of a plan which could result in the island's destruction, but perhaps for the greater good of the world. I'm going to be putting on probably full spoilers for this game because, frankly, to the few people who are going to be watching this, do you really care to play this game for yourself? I'll say right now that this game is a hard sell and is certainly loaded with a copious amount of quests to do, but there is a chance that the game will get in your way of truly enjoying it. Welcome to my adventure into, I guess, the island of Risen. I'm going to be talking about the game in two parts. The first part is going to be all about Chapter 1 of the game, as the game is split into 4 chapters, minus the little prologue at the beginning, and the second part is me trying to get past Chapter 1, and every other chapter after that. If I were to outline the game for how long each chapter takes to finish, Chapter 1 dominates in length compared to the others, and it's fairly obvious why that is, once you begin to take your first steps beyond the prologue of how to play the game. Chapter 1 is building your character, who your character is going to be, who your character is going to ally themselves with, choosing a class to play between Mage, Warrior of the Order, and Bandit/Thief, and getting the lay of the land, which honestly is one of my favorite things about the game. The island you explore throughout the entirety of the game is built very well. You can stay to the paths and the trails that you're used to, or you can blaze your own trail through the brush and trees at the risk of the wildlife that will break you very easily at the beginning of the game. Eventually, you will have to go off the beaten path in order to reach specific quest critical areas, but I found it to be rather relaxing to explore this island during the day so that there was color and brightness and not complete blackness. And I probably spent around 2 hours aimlessly trotting around the island, charting my own path and getting acquainted with the lush greenery the island provided. I just felt relaxed, really, despite the music throwing me off sometimes. I just did not realize that in Chapter 2 onward, in order to establish a fast travel system for yourself, you would need to do another lap or 2 around the island finding teleport stones off of lizardmen. Not necessary, but helpful when you have to be an errand boy between places because people don't like talking to each other. But in Chapter 1 there is only so many places you can go without getting yourself killed, and the game knows that, so it purposely railroads you to and away from certain places. Like in the beginning, you are repeatedly coaxed into heading to Don Esteban's camp in the swamp, and avoiding the temples because the Inquisition is there, and they are considered the enemies. And I can finally talk about the story a little bit. The story consists of a Grand Wizard who somehow conjured a spell strong enough to cast out the gods of the world, leaving humanity godless and on their own, and of course this had repercussions. This has caused a lot of unforeseen consequences and storms to appear around the world. And so a group from the mainland called the Inquisition, led by Inquisitor Mendoza, the nice, wonderful man from the title screen, they come to this island of the game, as it seems to be the only place that has not been affected by the storms. However, on the island, many ancient ruins have risen to the surface. I think that is a call out to the game title, but according to the game, it's not.
The flame of hope burns bright. Mankind has risen.
And the Inquisition has tasked themselves with exploring these ruins and the dangers within to find out why the island is relatively unaffected by the state of the rest of the world. Now, I talk about the story just because the game does not address the story directly during Chapter 1. And it is completely understandable if you forget what the game is about while you're playing the first chapter, because, like I said before, you are specifically building your character during this time. Not only in terms of skills, attributes, and equipment, but also in identity. I think it's a positive to the game where your character needs to establish themselves on the island and has to actually have a presence there in order for anybody to take them seriously. Instead of other RPGs where you are the only one in the room, so they give you the job even though they don't give a damn about who you are. The game can be self-aware sometimes on this fact as well.
The gnomes are using it as a kitchen table.
We've got to get it back somehow.
Good luck with that.
Hey, this is now as much your problem as it is mine.
Right, sure. It was bound to be down to me. How about I look for this crystal disc?
That would help us both out.
I must be in a charitable mood.
Look, I'm sorry. You think I like asking?
Now, despite having to choose your alliance by the end of Chapter 1, and being railroaded to join the bandit camp and ally yourself with Don Esteban, you don't have to. In fact, a lot of people recommend you keep bouncing between allegiances, with the Dawn and the Inquisition alike, in order to maximize the build of your character. You see, Risen is part of the group of RPGs where experience is very precious, and doing quests is more valuable than fighting the monsters on the island, just because the monsters do not respawn. When they're dead, and blocking off a section of quests to complete does not help your character get stronger. You will want to get acquainted with as many people as you can, though, get to know them, and find out about the people who you can take the most advantage of, especially if they can train you. As you level up in Risen, you will also receive learning points, or LP, which are used along with gold, like most everything else in the game, to level up skills with certain people, whether that be sword fighting, using an axe, bow, crossbow, pickpocketing, lockpicking, acrobatics, different areas of magic, smithing, and a few others. Just don't expect to hear serious words of wisdom from the trainers. It pretty much boils down to, hey, you have lots of gold, you do gooder at making arrow fly. Judge the enemy, and when it will strike you, you can do it. Believe, and other things like that. Heck, the final level for some training is just the trainer stealing money from you, all for them to say, well, I got nothing, you're better than me now. Go and live your life, it's fine.
There, behind you. Is that a lizard man?
What? Where? Why? Hey, are you totally out of your mind? As if things weren't tense enough around here. We can talk later.
There are also NPCs who can raise your base stats, like strength and dexterity, for a price. But even though the game directs you to Don Esteban and becoming a bandit, magic is actually really good to use. And very easy to raise, because it requires you to simply click on book stands at certain areas of the game, and pick up stone tablets in the later dungeons, and with those, you watch your wisdom soar. Seriously, magic is pretty effective if you're willing to go through the procedure of making all the spells yourself, because it gets a little bit in-depth in that area. And if you don't like to do that, picking up a bow has a similar benefit. Both fighting styles are ranged, and enemies can't defend against them, unlike melee combat, which is pretty clunky as a result, where enemies love repeatedly bashing against you and guarding against your every move, dancing around in a circle beating the crap out of you. Although it is satisfying when you do deck a very annoying enemy. Now, in order to make any sort of progression in the game, you're going to be completing quests. A lot of them. And I feel like Risen puts more focus on making the quests interesting than making the main story engaging. During your time throughout just Chapter 1, you might experience a number of deep character development moments, such as power struggles between the Don/his wife and the leader of the workers who requires protection money in order to keep them safe in the swamp, a woman who is wanting to escape the Inquisition-occupied town, Harbor Town, in order to find out more about her father, a bunch of people looking for simple work throughout the town because of how everything shifted in terms of the society, and specifically sending a message to a store owner by finding his prized cattle, killing it, and placing the head of it on his bed. That literally happens.
It's you!
Hello, Conrad. How's business?
You dare to show your face here. I know you were behind it, you and that weasel.
What do you mean?
You killed my cow. You killed my Elsa.
Well, your Elsa wasn't very well protected.
You bastard.
These are dangerous times.
Yeah, and every bastard is just out for what they can get.
And you're stuck with me.
Here, take your gold. I don't know how you can sleep at night. Just leave. Just go.
Show me your goods.
There are also problems with pathfinding for characters sometimes. I think it just has to do with me being in the wrong place at the perfect time, but this happened more than I thought it would. Like, seriously, you can't figure out any way of getting around me. Like, come on, you can do it, I believe in you. I believe in you just like those trainers believe in me in order to be more adept in doing anything in this game. Come on. But with all that said, and about 15 hours under my belt, I felt it was time to choose a side, and finally met the man on the title screen and move on to Chapter 2, Inquisitor Mendoza. However, I do have to mention that there is potential for problems that can cripple your game. I would not call it a bug, more like incorrect flag activation. You see, when you meet Mendoza for the first time, he's in the monastery and he is standing around what is called the Great Flame, a mystery of the island that presumably keeps it safe from the storms and the rest of the world faces. But, in my game, he wasn't there. According to my map, he was deep inside the mountain, standing in front of a giant door with lizard men all around him. Pretty much he was in a point of just dying if I engaged with him. The game decided to put Mendoza 2 chapters ahead, almost at the end of Chapter 3, even though I could still talk to him like he was in Chapter 1. My game was a little bit toast. So I had 2 options. Either I could play through the entire game again, or I could break the game harder. Which is what I decided to do. So, something I need to point out with how chapters officially change in Risen is that you get the chapter screen mid-conversation with a character. It's also generally looking for specific critical quests to be completed, of course. And in terms of moving to Chapter 2 from Chapter 1, you need to talk to Mendoza, and then physically follow him to the first magical door, because he constantly stops and gives you exposition that would have been great sprinkled throughout the chapter instead of after 15 hours of barely thinking about it. However, since my Mendoza was already inside the mountain, he did not want to move from his position.
Follow me and learn the truth. Now is not the time.
And it was impossible for him to do so because, in terms of how the game progresses, he had to get past the first door, then a giant gate, then a bridge over lava, and then through an ancient crypt in order to get to where he was. What this meant is that I had to play through the game backwards, just to hope and pray that he would magically teleport to where I needed him to be, and that his script would repair itself just enough for him to be in the right location. He would do it some of the time, and it was only through somewhat of a miracle that he managed to right himself so the game could push me officially through to Chapter 2. Now, after the huge length of Chapter 1, Chapter 2 onwards are far more focused. Chapter 1 certainly cannot be seen as an introduction chapter because of how much you can and have to do in order to progress. Because it could be easily seen that games that follow chapter structures generally follow a pyramid-like state. Not completely, I mean, Final Fantasy XIII's Chapter 11 is gigantic compared to the other chapters because of all the side content. But Risen's structure has such a wide base to it and foundation for Chapter 1 compared to the other 3 chapters. It's almost like you shouldn't use a pyramid structure at all and just use timeline structure. So in that case, let me summarize the next 3 chapters as quickly as I can. Chapter 2 focuses solely on opening the first door into the mountain, which needs 5 crystal discs, which are found throughout their own quests, such as a continuation of the quest revolving around Patty, the woman who you helped get out of Harbor Town, and find out more about her father, who is a famous pirate captain, and pirate stuff ensues, like treasure hunting and enemy pirates, or finding a wizard hermit in order to repair a disc that lost its magic in a rather lackluster way.
There, it's done.
Which also broke for me because you are supposed to go through a dungeon and find him in Lizard Jail, but instead, in mine, he was about 100 feet east of his own house. Yes, there are repercussions to snapping the game over your knee. Chapter 3 has you entering the mountain, opening the Great Gate, lowering the bridge over the lava, and getting through the crypts to reach the last door, which was really awkward since I already did these things in order to backtrack Mendoza. So Mendoza just stood before the first open door and refused to talk to me. But luckily, Chapter 3 also has you talking to an ancient ghost Titan Lord named Ursagor, which somehow got things back on track as you find the skulls and souls of specific crypt dwellers, including Ursagor's own skull, in order to open the final door to the Titan's prison, the reason for why the Great Flame exists, and the reason behind why the storms have avoided the island you're on. It is also here that you find the Inquisitor is evil. Kind of. Since he wishes to free the Fire Titan within his prison, and thinks he has the magical balls in order to control it, and become a hero to stop the other supposed Titans around the world. But, no matter what, even if he fails to control it, freeing the Titan results in the island being destroyed in flames. In addition, in Chapter 3, there is also the slight resolution of returning Harbor Town to Don Esteban from the Inquisition because they don't need to occupy it anymore, which is rather downplayed by the game itself, because several NPCs, once the changeover happens, will simply say that the Dawn is no better than the Inquisition, which can lead to Risen sending the message that sometimes you can't understand a society that you are not a part of, and they just might be oppressed no matter what. I don't know, food for thought. Maybe I'm completely out of my mind, but oh well. Which leads to Chapter 4, where the character picks up the mantle of becoming a Titan Lord, succeeding from Ursagor, finding all of his armor by spelunking through temples too big for their own good, including his shield and his mighty hammer, scattered across the island once more to renew the seal on the Fire Titan. And then you get a crappy ending, and how does the main character get out of the Titan room when the bridge collapsed behind him? No, well, never mind, it doesn't matter. Now, breaking and messing around with Risen was not my intention in the first place, but I found it fun to be able to dig into the files and discover how to activate the debug functions, because without them, I would have dropped this game completely and never would have had the opportunity to utterly destroy the Inquisitor at the end of the game, because for me, he definitely deserved it. So no, I cannot confidently recommend Risen for anybody to play. There is a certain audience, of course, for Piranha Bytes games, and they are already around and established because they most likely have already played the Gothic games. And according to some of them, in different opinion pieces about the Gothic series, Gothic 2 seems to be the best game that Piranha Bytes has ever made, with Gothic 3 also being highly recommended. What I have noticed with reading and watching opinion pieces as well with Piranha Bytes games is that the company seems to have issues making games that cater to their hardcore audience, but also expand on their audience. The rest of the Risen franchise, and even Elex, seem to follow similar bumps in the road when it comes to its gameplay and how the game works, especially with its combat being wonky and clunky and accessibility being cited as a struggle for new players. And based on all of the different opinions, what I say is that you should know who your audience is at this point and focus there and strengthen your core based on that. Although I understand that you do have to keep your head above water financially as a developer, especially in this day and age, but even with Risen being what it is, I don't know if I will continue with the franchise, especially when Risen 2 goes hard into pirate themes. Yes, Risen does have pirate themes, but they're subtle and they were woven into the entire atmosphere of the story and the environment, but pirate games really is not an area that I'm personally attracted to. And for some reason, I also have Risen 3 on my PS4, so I might just look into what happens in Risen 2 and then just go into Risen 3 and play that? Maybe? I don't know. I'm a little bit torn. But that is my thoughts and feelings and experiences with the original Risen. Thanks for watching. Take care, everyone.
You're beautiful.
Here, this bottle's on me.
I thank you. You are a gentleman, sir. A poet, and you're definitely not an arsehole.
Thanks.